Welcome to In Conversation, our debut. I surely hope that you and yours are doing well. Two very special guests to begin our series, Wayne Gretzky and Hayley Wickenheiser. The premise of the show is very straightforward. We're going to gain the experiences, the feelings, some of the lessons of well-known Canadians as we go through this springtime of very restless souls, each of us trying to sort out how we might be of service. It's interesting. Hayley Wickenheiser had two childhood aspirations. One was to be an Edmonton Oiler, so this is neat for Hayley, and the other was to be a doctor, and you'll hear about that in just a moment. Hayley understood growing up in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, that to be connected to Wayne Gretzky was really what it meant to be Canadian. And as time went on, she actually mirrors Wayne Gretzky by becoming a captain, a champion many times over, and a Hockey Hall of Famer. So you can conjure in your head what it is that Wayne Gretzky and Hayley Wickenheiser represent, but I thought we'd begin with just a couple of moments from their genius so that you can truly feel how it is they reside in your heart.
The fans here at Canada Hockey Place let you know that Canada has won gold.
Let the celebration tell the story.
Gretzky looking, Yari Curry, McSorley to Gretzky! Scores! He did it! He did it! The greatest goal scorer in National Hockey League history is Wayne Gretzky!
2019 Hockey Hall of Fame inductee, Hayley Wickenheiser.
Wayne Gretzky in on goal. Shoots, scores in overtime. Gretzky gets the winner. Edmonton win 5-4.
Thrilled to be joined by Wayne in California, and there's Hayley Wickenheiser. Hayley, can you hear me okay?
I can, Ron, yes.
Why don't we start with you? How are you doing? And then we'll get to a nice Wayne Gretzky story. But how are you doing and what are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine, thanks. Obviously, it's a strange time for everyone. For me personally, being in my last year of medical school while this is all going on has been a very eye-opening and interesting experience. So doing what I can from the position that I sit in medicine and trying to help my friends who are far more senior on the front lines get through this thing. So it's been a strange time for everyone around the world, for sure.
How are med students being deployed, if at all, during the pandemic?
So up until about 2 weeks ago, I was working in emergency rooms across the GTA. So my life was basically at the rink in the morning and afternoon, and then in the emergency room in the evening. So now they've redirected us to different things such as contact tracing, gathering PPE for frontline workers that need it, and a variety of other things that we can do, only allowing the most senior physicians in to deal with the COVID patients and the acuity that's happening. So it's been a lot of change, and it's happened very quickly.
So that's amazing. Wayne, just listening to that, obviously I go back to when Walter had the aneurysm and your connection to hospitals, and I'd love to know how you have quite a connection to obviously that industry. How are you doing and what are you doing?
Well, I think Hayley said it best. This is a new time for all of us, and obviously people like Hayley who deserve so much more credit than anyone for being on the front lines. This is a very serious situation, and as you said, my dad, we worry about him. He's got underlying issues, obviously, with his brain aneurysm, and my sister works full-time at a hospice, and I have a nephew that's going to be a nurse. So we're kind of, as a family, all holding our breath like everyone else. This is all new territory for everyone. And my goodness, I said the other day, we have to be, as a nation, kind of like a hockey team. We have to be unselfish, and we have to let the medical people and the people know what they're talking about lead us, and we have to listen closely to what they're saying and understand it's for the benefit of individuals and for the entire country.
Hayley, when you received the phone call that you were going into the Hockey Hall of Fame, there was a snag for Lanny McDonald that kind of connects to your pursuit of being an ER doctor. So tell us about that.
Well, I was actually in a code blue simulation in medicine where we get in small groups and we go through a protocol of how to save someone in a cardiac arrest situation, or a code blue. And so I could feel my phone was starting to blow up in my pocket, but I just couldn't answer my phone until a few hours later when I was driving home. I called Lanny and he goes, "Were you in surgery?" I said, "No, I wasn't in surgery, but just in a situation situation where I couldn't answer the phone. So it was maybe the first of its kind. I'm not sure.
I'm going to stay on this wavelength for a bit, Wayne, because Tyler Smith, the Humboldt Bronco, was in your home this summer. Obviously, your son Ty and Tyler Smith, the former Bronco, were teaching at the camp. You have a real connection again to this trauma that rocked our world. Maybe tell me about Tyler Smith coming down and living with you and Janet and the kids.
Well, first of all, we're so proud of our children, like all parents are. And my son is such a really wonderful young man that has a passion about the game of hockey that maybe even I didn't have. But he wasn't quite good enough to make the National Hockey League, but he always had this dream of being around hockey. And he had some hockey schools, and obviously we all followed the Humboldt tragedy, and it was just one of the worst tragedies ever, in not only in hockey but in life. And he reached out to a couple of kids and he had them get involved in his hockey schools. He stayed friends with them. They came down to LA and they stayed with us for a couple of weeks. I'm so proud of my son. It's a wonderful story.
So Hayley, I mentioned in the preamble that you wanted to be either a doctor or an Edmonton Oiler, and we'll come back to why you wanted to be a doctor in a second. But the Oiler part, Wayne Gretzky. I mean, you must pinch yourself over and again from 2002 to your experiences together at the ceremony in Vancouver. What's your favorite Wayne story?
Oh man, obviously I knew Wayne long before he ever knew me, and growing up in Shawinigan, Saskatchewan, I had this outdoor rink, and my dad in our backyard. So my dad and I used to watch Hockey Night in Canada, and then in between periods, I'd skate across the alley and on the outdoor rink. And my dad would always talk about Gretzky and Messier. So he'd talk about Messier's shot and Gretzky's smarts and his delay at the blue line, all those sorts of things. So I would go out and I would imagine that I was Wayne or Mark, and I would try to do what they would do. So it was a little surreal being in Salt Lake in 2002, because I remember we had won the gold medal and stepped off the ice. I was the first player to open the dressing room door, and standing in our dressing room were Wayne and Kevin Lowe. And I just remember, thinking to myself, holy crap, those are my childhood heroes. It was just such a full circle moment. But the funniest part about that is, Wayne was pretty fired up because Danielle Goyette, one of our players, she tried to dig the loonie out at center ice, and all I remember Wayne saying was, "You guys almost wrecked it for the men." So that was a fun moment in that dressing room. Spend a few minutes, and but I mean, that's probably the first chance I've ever got to tell Wayne the impact that you had on my life and my career, and to be an Edmonton Oiler in the '80s was a great thing to watch as a kid.
Over to you, Wayne. How about Hayley?
Well, listen, first and foremost, what Hayley has done to make a pathway for young girls to grow up, to have an ambition and have a goal of participating for Canada in the Olympic Games and in World Championships is really unique. And beyond that, the fact that in the midst of all that, being a hockey player and getting young ladies across the country to participate, she's never let down her guard as far as being a family person, and of course now venturing into the medical field. But I think my two fondest memories are when they won the gold medal and trying to dig out the loonie. I was like, oh my goodness, we got one gold, we got to get a second gold somehow. And then a really cute story, my other story was my son came up with the idea. I had a fantasy hockey camp, and every year I had a different theme: Oilers, Kings. One year I did the Sioux Greyhounds and the Detroit Red Wings, and we have 60 people that would come down and participate, and I have 14 or 15 NHL players. And my son said, "Dad, you need to have 2 American girls and 2 Canadian girls and really make this special." And I said, okay. So of course I reached out to Hayley and a few of the other girls, and I put the 4 girls in the referees' locker room, so they had their own changing room because we were short on space. And Hayley came over to me. She said, "Wayne, we have a little bit of a problem. We can't be in the same room as the Americans." I said, "Whoa, hold on a second." So I opened the door in our locker room, and there was Darren Langdon, Rick Tocchet, Marty McSorley, all those guys that had fought and gone at each other. I said, "Look at those guys. They're having fun now. The fight is over. Now we're here to enjoy ourselves." So after that moment, the girls got along well. And then I remember she came out of the locker room and I said, "Hayley, what are you doing?" She said, what do you mean? I said, where's your face mask? She said, I always play pickup hockey without a mask on. And I thought, oh, my goodness. And there I was on ice without a helmet. So I was a bad sort of a guidance counselor towards her. But I think it's so unique now, and I think it's so special that these girls get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. It gives girls an ambition and a goal in life to do something really special. And she's been obviously one of the leaders for that. And she deserves all the credit she gets.
Well, Hayley, you can pick up on that if you wish. Your role as Assistant Director of Player Development for the Toronto Maple Leafs is also another glass ceiling that you've helped to shatter. So, just that belief you always had that you are a hockey player, of course a woman, but a hockey player almost first. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very small town in Saskatchewan, Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, in a place where my mom and dad were school teachers, and they believed that a girl could do anything that a boy could do. And quite frankly, growing up, they needed me to play because I was a body that filled the team, so we could have a hockey team that could travel around small town Saskatchewan and play. So I just never grew up really with gender being an issue until I got obviously to bantam and midget, where I started. I was a good player, and I was taking the spot of another boy, and I started to face quite a bit of criticism. So, I just believe, a hockey player is a hockey player, and an athlete is an athlete. And obviously, there's physiological differences between men and women that don't allow us to do the same things. But when it comes to playing the game or loving the game or practicing the game, I think there's no difference there. And with my role with the Leafs and what I do in development, I could be on the ice on any given day with a junior player right up to Austin Matthews and John Tavares. And I love the fact that I can get on the ice with the best players in the world and feel like I have something to offer them, the insights that I've had and I've experienced through my career. So, I think for me, the better the player, the less of an issue that I have. And I think players today in hockey, really what their question is, can you help me? And if so, yes, then help me get better. And I think they don't see gender the way it was, say, 20, 30 years ago at all. And it's really just a non-issue.
Obviously, you two, the technology is such that it's difficult to know if the other one's in. But Wayne or Hayley, if you ever want to jump in and follow on that, please do. I'm going to give you a couple of questions here that came to us via Instagram and Twitter. A lot of, obviously, fascination with the fact that you're doing this. The number one question, this comes from bblunt87 on Instagram, so probably a Crosby fan. If your stall was between two other players, who would you want them to be? If your stall is between two other players and you can only pick two, who are they going to be? Wayne, you're up.
Oh, gosh, what a hard question, because I was lucky. I played with so many great players, and I got a chance to sit beside so many superstars. I guess if I was to think about it and really kind of say, I would probably pick Gordie Howe and John Beliveau, because those two guys, to me, were two of the greatest players and two of the nicest people that ever lived. And if I could sit beside those, or in between those two guys, and listen to their knowledge of the game and about life, that would be a pretty big thrill for me.
Hayley?
Well, I think I kind of already said it earlier, but Gretzky and Messier would have been my two picks for sure.
It's funny, Hayley, that Wayne should bring up Beliveau, because we know he loves Gordie Howe. Guy Lafleur is the only other superstar book I've read that he talks a lot about wanting to be somebody else. Wayne, you wanted to be Gordie. He wanted to be Jean Beliveau. And not too many superstars write that. Your love of stories and of heroes like Ty Cobb, Wayne. How in the world do you even know about Ty Cobb? And how was Ty Cobb kind of the baseball player? Because you're good at that too. How was he the one?
I don't know. My dad used to say to me, what is it with you and Detroit and old athletes? And I said, I don't know. I said, I grew up, for people who don't know, I grew up such a huge baseball fan. And I remember when the Toronto Blue Jays came to Toronto, I was so excited. And I went to the first game when it snowed and Doug Alt got 2 home runs. And I sat in the bleachers at the old C&E Stadium. But I was a huge Ty Cobb fan. And I named my son Ty Gretzky after a baseball player, Ty Cobb. And unfortunately for me, my son Ty grew up loving hockey and hating baseball. I figured, gosh, we're going to be in California. I got a good chance here of my son, because every parent wants to live their life through their kids, right? And I thought, gosh, maybe this son will love baseball and make Major League Baseball, and I can really enjoy it. And he never picked up a baseball glove, and all he wanted to do was play hockey.
Well, I just remember Trevor wearing a number 29 with Kane County and hitting it out of the park. Trevor was not too shabby at that. And Hayley, you were a great shortstop. So did you have role models in baseball that you admired or teams that you followed? And how is it that you got to the Olympic Games as a ball player?
Well, I did. I mean, I loved baseball growing up too. Obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays I watched as a kid, and the Atlanta Braves was actually my favorite team. But I played in Saskatchewan. We played hockey in the winter and ball in the summer. That's just kind of what you did. You threw your skates away. I didn't tuck my skates for 3 or 4 months, maybe just a hockey school for a week or two. And then we did all sorts of other sports. And on the prairies, it was fastball. So I grew up, idolizing, I think the women's fastball, it was the Atlanta Olympics, the first Olympics for women's fastball, when the American team was so dominant. Lisa Fernandez and Michelle Smith, some of these pitchers that could throw, 75, 80 miles an hour and make the ball go in and out and up and down. And I just really thought, I'd love to do that. And always loved the combination. I used to, when I was with the national team with hockey, I would get my teammates, a lot of them were also really good players. And I was playing on the national softball team. They'd hit me ground balls in the lobby of the rink, and we'd practice BP. They'd throw me some balls and stuff. And I did both sports. And I actually really think it helped me with my hockey career, with my eye hand. And, hitting a bat to a ball is probably one of the toughest skills in all of sports. So
I was talking to Wayne before we did this about Larry Walker. Wayne talked to Larry on the day he was inducted into Cooperstown. What a thrill. And Larry was such a cut-up. He's like Kirk Muller, right, Wayne? Larry in Colorado he'd bet all the rookies that he could go underwater in the whirlpool and last for like 3 or 4 minutes. And the kids would always take the bet. And then he'd go down and he'd suck on the nodule down there and get the air that way. And he'd win the bet every time. He's a favorite. Who else of baseball players, Wayne, heroes that you look up to?
Gosh, I always say that one of the greatest athletes who I ever saw, because of the pressure he was under and the microscope that he's under, and I got to be really good friends with him, was George Brett. And in baseball, it's such a team sport, but I think it was 85, he pretty much single-handedly beat the Toronto Blue Jays in the American League playoffs. So he was one of my favorites. I always loved athletes that performed under pressure. And you look at guys like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and John McEnroe and George Brett, the bigger the situation, the more at ease they seem to be and the better they seem to perform. And you look at it in hockey today, guys like Crosby and Ovechkin, and you go back to guys like Mark Messier and Bobby Orr, Lemieux, Howe. The bigger the game, the better they played. So those were always sort of my idols, because I understood firsthand the microscope and the pressure that they were under and what they felt. So I had tremendous respect for athletes who performed under pressure. I was talking, when Hayley was talking about baseball in Saskatchewan, one of my fondest memories was being I guess it was called Beaver League Baseball at the time, Pee Wee Baseball, and I was playing for Ontario. And we beat Nova Scotia in the championship game when we were playing the tournament in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, back in, I guess, it should be 1972 or 73. So it was one of the proud moments of my baseball career and something I'll never forget.
It's incredible. You go into the 42 Variety Avenue in Brantford, Ontario, and they've got Brent upstairs because he's an OPP officer, so they're, again, first responder. And, of course, Wayne's trophies have to be in the basement or there'd be nobody in the kitchen or in the living room. And they also have Walter's trophies. Walter was a great, great baseball player. Hayley, last thing for you. And by the way, Wayne, we wanted to mention James Dolan has COVID-19, and he was a New York Ranger owner in the Knicks. Really good to you. Wanted to get that in. And Hayley, last word to you. ER. All these folks in emergency right now, it's sustainable high performance. I don't know how they do it, but you and Wayne managed to sustain through a long period of successful professional and amateur hockey. How do these doctors do it? What's your advice to them?
Well, I think Wayne said it earlier, and in the emergency room, it really is a team sport, just like hockey. You're under a lot of pressure. You've got to make decisions quickly. The only difference, I would say, is the stakes are a lot higher because you have human lives on the line versus gold medals and Stanley Cups, which in the big picture of things don't really matter in all of this. So I told my friend yesterday, who was an emerge doc of 20 years, she was feeling a little bit of anxiety and fear going into the ER, that this is your Met Olympics. This is what you've trained for 20 years. It's no different than anything else you've done or you're going to do. Just revert back to your preparation, and you got to trust your team and the people around you. So, I mean, I've been on the front lines for the last 2.5 months watching this all unfold, and I truly admire and respect the people that are working in amongst a lot of uncertainty and amongst a lot of fear and high pressure situations. The job that they're doing, from the doctors and nurses even to the cleaning staff, the porters in the hospital, everybody that's kind of making this go, and our first responders out there, police and paramedics, and even our truck drivers. Like it, as Wayne said, it is a total team effort. It's going to be a national Stanley Cup or Olympic gold medal final that we have to win.
What a gift to spend time with both of you. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Hayley.
Oh, thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Ron.
Be safe.
Wayne.
So that's our little show. Again, a huge thank you to Wayne Gretzky and to Hayley Wickenheiser. If you would like to ask questions of future guests, don't forget the hashtag #InConversation. You can do it via Twitter or Instagram, and we'll forward those. Our next broadcast is Friday evening, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific, on our YouTube channel. So go to youtube.com/Sportsnet. Also available on the Facebook page and, of course, sportsnet.ca. Our guests Friday, Peter Mansbridge, longtime host of the National, and 3-time Olympic champion, and our mission chef for the now 2021 Tokyo Olympics, Marnie McBean. Going to close with a song lyric each and every show. Thought we would begin with Blue Rodeo. I want all the world to know your love's all I need. If we are lost together. There is no doubt we are in it together. Thanks for being along in conversation.